we want to go back to cycling. I'm delighted to say Nico Roche is with us in his brand spanking new red jersey this morning, a second day. Nico, how does that feel?
Good, and I actually soaked in better. I had a better night's sleep. The last 2 days ago, took me a while to fall asleep. I was like a kid before Christmas, just all excited, and not quite realising again that I was wearing that jersey.
You said as well in today's piece in the Irish Independent that there was just so much media and so much protocols to go through immediately afterwards. You don't actually get back to the hotel until 9:15 in the evening, and then it's a massage and it's dinner, and that's just the adrenaline pumping for hours and hours afterwards, kind of staring at the ceiling, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Especially 2 days ago, I had no battery in my phone, so I was doing all the catching up once I got to the hotel. And I think I must have got back to my room probably at around 11:15. And then obviously, I had a lot of messages from friends, family, and I just wanted to take some time to kind of get back to everybody. But after that, obviously, I was just like in bed and just staring at the ceiling, and just all the kind of adrenaline is still in.
Did you expect this, Nico? Did you expect to be going to Spain targeting the red jersey in the early stages?
No, not at all. I wanted to do a good race, but my role here with the team was clearly that I needed to support Wilco Kerdeman in the GC and in the high mountains in the upcoming weeks. Obviously, we went in the Vuelta hoping that we were going to give it a proper go to win the team time trial, which meant that we were quite close to the red jersey at some point, or if not taking it already on the TDT. So having the red jersey in the team was something that we thought of. And then the next day, with this very difficult climb, there were also open scenarios. I did not had in mind that we were going to go so hard up it, and I did believe it was going to be a little bit more controlled and maybe have a bigger group sprint. And I was going to have a try in the sprint, but nothing like the scenario that happened. And even when I went in the attack, I was still not thinking of the red jersey. I was kind of thinking, all right, this could be a chance to get a proper result on the stage. It did go through my mind. I do admit I did have a chat with the sports director on the radio, and he said, Nico, just focus on the win, and then if you win the stage, you will get the red jersey. I missed out on the stage, but at least I got the red jersey for 2 seconds, so it was a big relief.
Yeah, and so what's that like then? Because it's been a really difficult season for you guys. It hasn't quite reached the standards that you wanted to. There's been a missing team leader through injury for most of the big races this year, and here you are all of a sudden at the end of the year, practically in the Vuelta in red. It must be a massive relief for everybody.
I think the team is very happy with me being in red. It's kind of a little bit of a highlight. Obviously, we're all very aware that I'm going to lose it over the next few days. Once I come into the mountains, I don't think my shape is as good in the high mountains as I've been in some of the previous Vueltas. Although I believe that, I hope that I'll be getting a little bit better over the second and third week. I kind of did my training differently. Normally I come out of the tour and I take like a few days a bit easier, and then I'm kind of flying and I feel really good. Where this year I came out of the tour because of the crash and sickness completely run down, and it took me a long time to come back to feeling good, and I kind of backed off a little bit training, and I start here the Vuelta a little bit fresher, but I don't think quite at the top level, but hopefully especially for those really big mountains that are coming, I think I will survive some of the stages like tomorrow. I think with the 2 seconds on Quintana and 4 seconds or 5 seconds over Uran, it's going to be very tough for me to keep the jersey, but I still I'll be in contention for another bit.
Do your team tactics change at any point now, Nico? You say you didn't really expect to be here in this position. Has there been any tweaks to kind of react to the new situation that your team finds yourself in?
Yeah, totally. The team told me that it's all but normal that tomorrow I have all my right to go and fight for the jersey and to keep a good position in GC. But obviously, like I've talked with the sports director, that the priority is Wilco, and coming into the second and the third week in the high mountains, I will kind of be around him. But saying that, I still believe, it's a Grand Tour. It's 3 weeks of racing, and there's always going to be opportunities. And I believe that if I do my work well with Wilco, I still will have a good enough chance to perform the way I want, that it's not going to, completely destroy my own chance. We're a team that is not here to control. So being around Wilco means being around him, and that's also in the front group. It doesn't mean being in the front and riding all day in the wind. So it's a very different scenario than when I have to ride with someone to put them in position for the last climb or whatever. But it means that I have to kind of stay with Wilco, be there in case something happens. Obviously, I reckon there will be stages where the two of us are going to be isolated from the rest of the team, and there I might have to do a little bit of work to put him in position. But I believe that if the condition is there over the next 2 weeks, I will be able to do both, to be able to help Wilco in the best possible way, and also to see some opportunities for myself.
If we take the conversation away from tactics and in terms of your specific tactical role within Team Sunweb, what's your role like kind of away from the circuit, away from the tour, away from the Grand Tours? Because even just looking at the age profile, you're one of the older guys in Team Sunweb at the moment. Do you find that you're kind of embracing more of a leadership role even off the bike a little bit in the team?
Yeah, totally. I think actually even more so than on the bike. It was pretty clear when I joined Sunweb last year that they wanted me for my experience more than for my performances. And all year long, I've been, for example, always rooming with some of the younger riders, trying to share some of my experiences, also my knowledge of the road, the race, but my knowledge also of how other teams race too. So I think the most important role I have in this team is probably around the development, helping those young riders, and sharing my ideas and my point of view on diets, because at this stage in my career I tried them all and I know which one works or doesn't work for me and why. And then obviously we have a kind of more open conversation about, because everyone's different. When you're 20-year-old, your body is not the same as when you're 35. And for example, this year I noticed it where it was actually the first time that took me so long to recover after this big crash I had in the tour. So all these are the things, and I'm quite happy that a lot of these young guys are actually hungry for information and they like talking. And sometimes I feel like I'm like one of these old farts talking stories like a granddad. And when I'm talking, I had no power meter, and it was already, if you had a heart strap on, it was already a big thing. And no wireless computers. I had a wire on my front fork, so it feels like it's a completely different age, even though I don't feel that old. But even in terms of diet, teams have completely upped their games in terms of diet. And when I talk to the guys and saying that, when we were amateur, we'd get up at 6 to have a red meat and pasta, where now this is like, no, this is a no-go. So how trends in diet have come up, and it's quite nice how they kind of like to listen to these stories, and we compare with now. And I think they also realize how privileged they are now to have access to all this knowledge from all these kind of experts that are around the team.
It was interesting then in your piece today in the Indo, you talked about being nervous when the adrenaline, when it happened, but then nervous during the actual stage yesterday. And you kind of feel like, you're 35, you've dealt with this kind of stuff before, you've seen it all. But maybe because you've seen it all and because you're at that stage of your career, that's why you're nervous, because you realise that another day in red this time will be one day more than the last time you were in red. And maybe you're just able to realise that these chances aren't going to come that often again in your career.
No, I totally agree with you. And yesterday, for example, I was just coming into the bunch to the bonus sprint. Even though I perfectly knew that there was no interest of Quintana going for the bonus seconds, but I still stuck to his wheel just in case he was, and I was really, really nervous and sitting on him, and he could not go anywhere in the bunch without me be close to him, and all these kind of things. And then coming into the finish, I was just so nervous about a crash, about missing out on a corner, about a split coming into the finish. So all these are the things, because I've seen it happen and because I've been in that situation, obviously not for losing the leader's jersey, but for losing a position on GC or whatever it is, coming into the race where you could lose or win just for a couple of seconds of not focusing, or the opposite, take the advantage when you're that bit more focused. And to go back to what you said, it's exactly the same feeling. Is at this point in my career, I've had so many crashes over my 15-year career that I do know how hard the road is, and some of these young lads that didn't quite go through these experiences, having a high-speed crash or diving in the corner and having a wheel slip and all that kind of stuff. Well, they haven't tasted the pain of injury, so they're kind of fearless. Where I kind of realized today that this is a moment in my career where crashing could be the end of my career, and I have a lot more to lose in crashing than in touching the brakes. Where 10 years ago, I had a lot more to, if I went through the corner in second position, then it was great. I could make a jump in my career. But if I crash, it's like, it doesn't matter, I'll go again next week. Where this doesn't happen anymore,
That's interesting. The end of your career is obviously something that flickers into your thoughts in the midst of a stage like this. And I guess it has to. You're at that stage of your career where it's year by year. And I'd say in the slow recovery after the crash of the Tour, there must have been some dark moments where you're like, I don't know if this is really worth it anymore. Why are you thinking? What is your thinking around that?
Well, to be honest, because it was this time of the year, and I knew my condition was good, and I was looking forward to the Vuelta, it kind of helped me to stay focused mentally. I have friends, family around me who know how much I always go good, and I look forward to the second part of the season. So I have to say, everyone who was around me and surrounded me gave me always a good morale boost to make sure I stay focused and motivated, because this is the time of the year where I usually get into form. And I struggled through the spring classics and to get up to shape up to now. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to let this crash bother me. But saying that, even training, when I was descending some of the climbs with my friends and my training buddies in Monaco, when I was going down the descents, they were dropping me on the descents because I was really worried, because I didn't want to hit a pothole, because that's what happened. I hit a crack on the road, and the wheel went. So I was like, all right, I'm just descending and really, really cautious, because there was no way I was going to crash training, where normally I've always been quite a decent descender. But the last couple of weeks I was just even going through towns and roundabouts, just kind of touching the brakes a little bit more. Obviously, it's happened to me before, and I've come back in that position of forgetting about the crash. And I think that's one of the main strengths of a cyclist, is you're bound to crash at some moment, and it's just trying to come back and not to think about it. Obviously, in a race, it's a bit different. You kind of have the adrenaline, and you're kind of a lot more focused. So you have a bit, when the race is full on, you have a bit less time to start thinking about crashes. It's more when the race kind of slows down, or it's kind of that medium hard level, then everything goes through your mind.
If this is kind of a double-edged question, but if you are going to come back next year, getting into red in the Vuelta is great, because it kind of shows everybody that, hang on a second, actually this is somebody who knows exactly how to manoeuvre their way through the early stages of a Grand Tour like this, and is very valuable to a team for all the reasons you've already talked about. Have you thought about next year yet, and does getting into red increase the likelihood of you coming back next year? Is it guaranteed you're going to come back next year? What's the story?
Yeah, well, at this stage, I still haven't renewed or found a contract yet. Everything is still it's in progress, which is quite normal for this month of August. But yeah, I'm definitely not ready to retire. I think I have still a lot to do and to show and to bring into the cycling business, if it's with developing the younger riders or still going for some of the results myself. I still race with the heart of a junior, and I think I've showed it again during the Tour and already the early stages of this Vuelta. But is it to aim red? I've always been kind of not a specialist, but always been there and about in the first week of the Vuelta. If you look at all the Vueltas I've done, I think the first week of the Vuelta I've always been in top 10 or closer to top 5 even. So it's not something new. It just took me so many years to get into red that time, because already in 2013, for example, when I won the first stage, obviously our team had lost a little bit more time on the team time trial the day beforehand, and I was, I think, 20 seconds off the red jersey, even though I had won the first mountain stage. But I got the red jersey a couple of days later. But most of the week, so a couple of years ago, 2017, I was lying in second behind Froome for, I think, almost a week. So for 2 or 3 seconds behind Froome. So I've been in that position, just not wearing the jersey, but in that position of being very close or in with the big leaders in the first week of the Vuelta especially. The only problem is some of the years I've always find actually the end of the second week more than the third week, when we start hitting the really high mountains, always a little bit more of a struggle.
Just one last question from me, Nico. The picture that's kind of doing the rounds in the back of the newspapers this morning is yourself and Sam Bennett. Obviously, a magnificent day for him. And I don't know, like maybe it's too much of a leap on my part here, but I think you kind of share similarities in terms of how you approach cycling in your respective teams, because it's been such a tough year for him, really, when you think about it, being asked to wait this long for his moment in the sun. And as a sprinter, it must always be tough being a teammate of Peter Sagan. But yet this is a guy who comes back, who manages to play for the team, and he gets his moment in the sun yesterday. And it's and yourself and himself are pictured, as I say, in the back of a lot of the newspapers.
Yeah, I mean, I was personally, and you know, we get to train sometimes in Monaco, and I know Sam many years now, and I know how. I mean, generally speaking, his whole career has been tough. You know, he already in the younger years, he had a lot of problems with his knee. It took him a while to kind of get that confidence, and then, lucky enough, his kind of first breakthrough was in the Tour of Britain a couple of years ago with the Jan Post team. And then he kind of stepped it up there, and that gave him a lot of confidence for the future. But yet he wasn't a World Tour sprinter, and it took him another 2 years before he became a World Tour sprinter. And what he's been doing since last year is just exceptional. And like you said, it must be very difficult for him because he's always in the shadow of Peter Sagan. Doesn't matter how good he is, and being in that team, for example, you know, I think he was really disappointed not to have gone to the Giro because of politics, because the team wanted a German sprinter or whatever they defended themselves with. But it was great that he got his shot first sprint and he nails it. You know, I think for him it's a massive relief.
Nico, congratulations on being in red. Long may it continue, and thanks a million for being so generous with your time this morning.
Thank you.